The Barracks Orderly. Few among men are they who cross over to the further shore. The others merely run up and down the bank on this side, the Dharmapada. I spent just shy of 2 years in the United States Army between the Korean and Vietnam Wars, from October 1958 until August 1960. I was a military policeman for 1 year and an X-ray clerk typist for the second year. I hated the Army with a passion. I went in soft and easy, and I came out angry and hard. It was a terrible, terrible experience. We defined a patriot as a man who is willing to lay down your life for his country. In the final months of service in the medical company, I found myself on the Barracks Orderly list every week. There were 60 of us in the medical company, and by all rights and fairness, each one of us should have been the Barracks Orderly once every 2 months. And there I was, cleaning the barracks, the latrines, the urinals, toilets, and stalls, sweeping, vacuum cleaning, and mopping the floors, putting down wax and polishing it, and cleaning the Venetian blinds every week. Then I woke up one morning and said to myself, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it ever again. I got out of bed, got dressed, and hobbled down the hall towards the sergeant's office at 6 a.m. I knocked on his door. Come in, the voice said. I opened the door and hobbled in. Sergeant, I said, I can't walk. Something's happened to my foot. I can barely move it without pain. The sergeant looked at me and paused. Then he said, Macht. They always called me Macht, like the apple juice. You had better go on sick call. He wrote me out a sick slip. I hobbled out of his office, across the lawn and the parking lot, and went into the front door of the hospital. I sat and waited for a good 2 hours. Then I heard my name called. I went over to a sergeant who was taking the slips of paper, and he said to me, son, they always called you son in the Army. What's the matter? I said, Sergeant, I can barely move my foot. I am in such pain. You have to see the podiatrist, he said. I went down the hall to the podiatrist's office. His name was Artie Cam. He was a good friend of mine. I went in and Artie said to me, what's the matter, Dick? I said, my foot is killing me, Art. I'm the Barracks Orderly today, and I just can't do it. I winked at him with my right eye. I see, Artie said. Well, we'll fix you up just fine. He put a wooden wedge inside my shoe underneath my heel. I had been walking on the right side of my foot. Now I was walking on the left side, and I could barely walk without stumbling. He wrote me out a light duty slip for the next 2 weeks. 6 hours later, I heard the 12 o'clock chimes ring. I returned to the sergeant, who was just still sitting in his office. When I walked in, he looked at me and started yelling, Macht! Macht! Where have you been? You are the Barracks Orderly today. You are supposed to be cleaning up the barracks. I gave the sergeant my light duty slip and said, Sergeant, I just can't do it. Here is my light duty slip for the next 2 weeks. The sergeant looked at me. He was fuming. Utter astonishment shone in his eyes. Sergeant, I said again, I just can't do it. I gave him a stiff salute, turned around, and hobbled out of his office. For the next 3 months, until the very day of my discharge, I never found my name on the Barracks Orderly list again. the day I left the Army and I came into the sergeant's office for my discharge papers, including the paper that gave me back my civilian clothes, the sergeant looked at me. For a good minute, he didn't say anything. Then, as he handed me my papers, he said, "Macht, do you remember that day 3 months ago when you were the barracks orderly and you went on sick call?" "Yes, Sergeant," I said, "I remember it well." "Why did you do it, Macht? Why did you do it?" The sergeant said, "I'll tell you why, Sergeant. I'll tell you why I did it. I did it so that someday I wouldn't wind up in a foxhole with a bullet in my head while some sergeant like you sits back at headquarters company drinking cognac. That's why I did it, Sergeant. That's the real reason why I did it." I gave the sergeant a stiff salute, a regulation Army salute. Then I turned around and hobbled out of his office.